Hi, I'm Eric.
And I'm Dick. We are the Annuity Guys.
Dick, we're looking at 5 common kind of annuity mistakes that people really need to be avoiding.
Well, Eric, there's probably a whole lot more than 5, but
Oh no!
these are 5 that we have run into consistently. We have so many, website visitors and people that call in, so kind of just say it's a field observation.
It's an independent survey results here.
One of the things that I find that really bothers me is when I start to look at what somebody has done and they need money out of their annuity and they put too much in their annuity that was really meant for short term, and they put in a long-term retirement vehicle.
Well, it's when you start to see problems with somebody said, well, annuities are a bad thing because you have limited liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the dollars that are limited should never have gone into that annuity in the first place.
Yes.
If you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to buy a summer home,
Sure.
I'm going to do that in 3 to 6 months. But in the meantime,
yes.
let's go ahead and put all that money in an annuity that has a surrender charge if you pull it out early. It doesn't make sense if you're looking at something in 3 to 6 months and you're putting into a product that has a surrender of 5 to 10 years.
Well, and this is the difference with planning. When you're really doing proper retirement planning, financial planning, you're talking with someone and you're sharing those variables of what's in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're thinking about a summer home.
Yeah.
We're thinking about certain vacations, houses. We want to give money to our kids.
Yeah.
Well, all of that has to be separated out, even if it's years ahead.
Right.
You don't put that money into an annuity unless you have a real plan as to how that money is going to come out at some point where it is penalty-free, surrender-free.
Yeah, it needs to be part of that income plan where you know those dollars are coming out, and it could be as soon as a year or right now, but it's being part of the plan and knowing that you're not going to get in there and pull out the big lump sum.
Exactly.
The other aspect, and kind of ties together with where you're putting the money and how much you're putting in, it's how much you put into a company that may not be the strongest as far as ratings. Because
yes,
let's be honest, it's these lower rated companies have to buy your business usually.
Right, exactly.
And so they're usually, sometimes it's a higher interest rate, maybe more access to dollars.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other piece out there, but
yes,
how much you put into those types of companies.
Yeah, I think this goes back to even number 1. When people put too much money in an annuity or they put too much money in a lower rated company,
Right.
A lot of times it really has to do with not so much proper planning, but an overzealous salesperson. The lower rated companies pay larger commissions. They give better trips. As a whole, I'm just saying. So when you see that somebody's got too much money in the B-rated companies, or there's nothing wrong with putting a little money in,
Right.
but it isn't where you want to put the bulk of your money necessarily.
Well, are you saying annuities might want to be about safety? Is one of the things that people take pride in?
It really is, and folks, it is the number 1 reason why most folks are doing an annuity, is just because they want a very safe position. So let's start with very, very safe companies, A plus.
Yeah, building the ladders. Diversification,
Yes.
even amongst companies, is never a bad plan,
Right.
especially if you're going to use one that's got perhaps a little
Yes.
bit lower rating.
Yes.
So then we're taking it, and then we're saying, now, could this possibly be something we're going to avoid, putting too much or too little?
Or not enough, because
Too little money?
Because that really can be an issue. It's like we talked about in number 1, putting too much into an annuity and not preparing or thinking about the short term. But just as problematic is putting too little into an annuity when you're really trying to plan your retirement, plan that safety portion of your retirement, that foundational portion, and make sure that you get enough in annuities to cover that, so that the annuity does what it's intended to do.
Right. If your true goal, and this is where we're talking about goals and plans, is to cover your foundational income amount, and you don't put enough in there to truly take care of that portion, then not having enough there could lead to shortfalls in other areas down the road.
Right, and we talk a lot about putting the least amount of money necessary in annuities. So start with that position first. Figure out what's the least amount you need, but don't go below that, because then it defeats the purpose of the annuity many times.
Right, solve the goal, hit the target.
Yes. I think another thing too, number 4 here we've got is expecting a return that's very unrealistic.
Well, if you're expecting market type returns, and I have
Yes.
people that call and they ask for stuff that's beyond market type returns and they want it guaranteed,
Right.
it doesn't.
It really doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
No, no.
I know there's numbers out there that you'll see 8, 10, 12%.
7% floor, 8% floor,
Guaranteed.
guarantees. You can never make less than this amount,
Right.
and it's a distortion of the real truth of the whole picture.
Right. If you're looking for a growth number in annuities, yeah, can you expect probably in that 3 to 6% range?
Yes.
Probably. I mean, that's kind of the realistic norm, which is better than the banks are paying right
Yeah,
now.
considerably better. I mean, by like maybe 4, 5, 6 times or more. But I think that you're right, Eric. I think that if folks think in terms of I could settle if I only got 3%, but I'd really prefer 6, and if I landed in that 4 to 5% range, I mean that's pretty reasonable growth. From interest earnings.
Yeah.
To satisfy most people with a very safe position.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're looking for. You're looking for safety. You're looking for flexibility.
Yes.
But have realistic expectations.
Yeah.
And these are volatility controlled pieces. Yeah.
Well, and so many times the picture that's painted, as we've said, is someone that's a little overzealous on the selling side. This is an uncapped index. I can show you. I see it on the internet. 14%, 13%. I can show you a statement where somebody earned this, and it's like, okay, so there was an anomaly.
Yeah.
Okay, this did happen once.
And we can always show those things, but it's about then tempering your expectations because with every 14 that goes, there's usually a 0 that matches up somewhere down the road. So, and that's how those things balance out.
Right.
So over time, that's just the cost of doing business.
Exactly.
And so,
Yeah.
speaking of cost, though,
Fees.
paying too much in fees, and when we talk about annuities and fees, I think typically we focus in on one specific type of annuity.
Well, the variable annuity that
Typically has the most fees.
Well, it does, and so often, Eric, even the fees that are talked about in a variable annuity, the fees that are up front, the ones that you see, the 3.5%, which includes the rider and the admin and the mortality and all of that. It's really not just that. There's hidden fees in variable annuities.
Your investment expenses.
Exactly. And so you may be realistically talking about somewhere between 3.5 on the very low side to more likely 4 to 5% in fees on variable annuities. It's not unusual.
When you get all the riders and add
Yes.
all the pieces on. And that's usually one of the biggest problems is it's easy to add a rider at the time you're first starting out because you're not paying it out of your pocket. All of a sudden you get a statement a couple months later. It's like, holy cow!
What is this for? Why am I being charged?
Well, and there's nothing worse than you seeing your principal balance drop by 10%.
Yeah, the market's up a few percent, but you're actually dropping.
Yeah. Or it's even worse, the market's dropping and you're dropping even worse. So, and it's having the expectation for what those riders can actually perform, what they're set to do, and do you really need them?
Even need the riders, and this is where we come back to the hybrid style, the fixed indexed annuity that has some riders that are available, but the chassis of that annuity starts out, folks, with virtually no fees, and many times there are actually riders that have no fees or riders that have very low fees.
Yeah.
So, and I think that goes back to what you were just talking about, Eric, is that even on those annuities, many times folks will get a rider and not need it.
Well, the mentality, unfortunately, is that the salesman says, I can get you 5% guaranteed by adding this rider.
Yes.
Everybody's mindset immediately goes, they're going to preserve 5% of my principal by adding this on. They don't talk about the guarantee being for future income or anything of that.
Right.
They cut right to the chase and say there's a 5% guarantee. Don't you want it? and unfortunately, if we're talking about income, in all honesty, there's better guarantees probably even on the fixed side now.
Yes.
Now, are you giving up that unlimited upside potential? Yes, but what's it cost you? And I think that's when you're looking at annuities, let's look at the cost for the investment, what you're giving up, what you're looking to accomplish. You put it all as part of the plan to make sure you're not overpaying for something that you're not even going to use.
If you're going to use the rider, Eric, it can be fantastic.
Sure.
On the other hand, you're way more likely to get the 5% if you don't get the rider.
Right. Strangely enough, the actual growth will be better if you don't add any of the bells and whistles. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to determine, and that's one of the key questions we ask right up front, and a good planner will ask is, what are your priorities for this annuity?
Yeah.
Is it for growth? Is it for income?
Yeah.
And that's again a big part of the whole planning situation. So we've talked about 5 annuity mistakes. Is this pretty much the main 5, Eric?
I think this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Are there plenty of things you need to avoid?
Absolutely.
Certainly.